The Untold Origin of the Benin Bronze Masterworks. From the hushed emptiness inside British museums, we now turn toward another historical puzzle, a legacy of artistry so astonishingly crafted, so impossibly advanced for its era and location, that even the empire responsible for stealing it was shocked by what it found. These are the Benin Bronzes, not one piece, but a vast treasure. Hundreds, even thousands of plaques, sculpted heads, altar objects, and ritual figures, each cast in intricate metalwork. Many now rest deep inside the dim corridors of the British Museum, gleaming faintly beneath controlled lighting. But Britain did not create them. They originated in the powerful Kingdom of Benin, located in present-day southern Nigeria, a society as sophisticated as it has long been misjudged. And even now, after decades of research, one essential mystery remains unsolved. How did these artifacts come into existence? The story begins inside the royal palace of Benin. In the 16th century, towering red earth walls enclosed a sprawling royal complex alive with the movement of courtiers, priests, military commanders, and skilled craftsmen. Within this sacred seat of power, the Oba, the king, sat upon his throne among ancestral altars and bronze heads honoring past rulers. Nearby, in a workshop lit by flickering palm oil lamps, the master metalworkers of the Igun Iron Guild heated metal in clay crucibles, guiding molten brass into vibrant depictions of royal authority, ceremony, and warfare. Their creations were unlike anything seen elsewhere in West Africa. Each piece balanced stylization with realism, order with movement, symbolism with lifelike form. The method behind their work was lost wax casting, an ancient technique found in early civilizations. Yet in Benin it reached nearly divine perfection. When Europeans first arrived along the West African coast, this artistic tradition had already existed for centuries. But in 1897, during a British military invasion, the Western world encountered the true scale of Benin's artistic legacy. After a British diplomatic mission was attacked on the road to Benin City, a retaliatory army armed with Maxim machine guns launched an assault. Benin City was destroyed, its palaces burned, sacred sites shattered, and cultural treasures looted. From the ashes, crates packed with bronzes were shipped to London. They were sold, inventoried, and scattered to museums and collectors across Europe and America. What British soldiers had expected to be crude tribal artifacts turned out to be the refined works of an advanced artistic civilization. Their technical detail matched, and some argued even surpassed, European craftsmanship of the same period. Realistic portrayals of royal rituals, armed warriors, Portuguese merchants, and mythic beings revealed a structured, educated, and organized society. Where had such astonishing knowledge come from? Early European observers reacted with shock and denial. Many Victorian-era scholars refused to accept that the bronzes were of African origin. They argued the techniques must have been taught by Portuguese traders, Arab craftsmen, or perhaps by foreign artisans from some forgotten Mediterranean influence. Some even claimed that African people lacked the mental capacity to create such masterpieces. But these assumptions were prejudice, not fact. Over time, experts confirmed that the methods were entirely local. The tools, the clay molds, the artistic symbols all reflected indigenous beliefs and spiritual systems. Oral records trace the origin of the Igun Guild back to Oba Oguola in the 13th century. Yet the deeper mystery remained. While the artistic lineage could be traced, the origins of the technology were still unclear. Where did Benin's first metalworkers learn the lost wax casting method? Who taught the first royal casters? And how, deep within the African rainforest, did they obtain the scientific knowledge required to melt and shape brass and bronze with such precision? The region lacked natural deposits of copper and zinc, both essential to bronze making. These metals had to be brought in through long-distance trade networks stretching far beyond West Africa. But who supplied them? Some theories propose that the knowledge traveled along the trans-Saharan trade routes, carried by merchants from the Mali Empire or Songhai, cultures shaped by centuries of interaction with North Africa and the Islamic world. Others suggest deeper African origins, linking Benin's metalwork to the ancient Nox civilization, whose clay figurines date back to 1000 BC and may represent the early foundation of later African bronze cultures. A few fringe researchers go even further. They note visual similarities between Benin's bronzes and the art of ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia, pointing to shared traits like elongated eyes, formal body poses, and symbolic scaling of figures. These scholars argue that perhaps some long-forgotten wave of cultural diffusion once connected these regions. But evidence is scarce, and mainstream historians reject such claims due to lack of proof. Still, the central question refuses to disappear. How did a kingdom believed to be isolated develop artistic and metallurgical techniques that matched, and at times surpassed, the achievements of Renaissance Europe? Another mystery lies in the sheer volume of production. Hundreds of massive bronze plaques, commemorative heads, and statues once filled the royal palace, each demanding huge amounts of metal, labor, and expertise. How did Benin support such a vast artistic industry? Was it funded by foreign clients, outside royal patrons, or entirely by the Oba's court? Some historians believe Benin's trade and diplomatic relations with Portugal beginning in the late 1400s may have provided access to metal resources and even artistic exchange. But that still does not explain the existence of much older bronzes, created long before any European contact. Could it be that what we call the Benin Bronzes are merely the last surviving fragments of a much older artistic tradition, one largely erased by fire, war, and the passage of time? Today, these bronzes are at the center of intense global debates over ownership and restitution. European institutions still hold artifacts that were taken by force. Nigeria is now building a new museum in Benin City to house pieces that are finally being returned. But behind the legal and moral battles lies a deeper unresolved mystery, not just who owns the bronzes, but where they truly came from. What ancient belief systems shaped their symbolism? Who were the forgotten teachers who passed down the lost wax method? What cultural memories lie preserved in this immortal metal? When the British Empire looted Benin, it didn't just steal objects. It shattered history, stripping knowledge from its source. And within that broken story, the origin of the bronzes still hides unanswered. Are they the peak of a known artistic journey, or echoes of an unknown and vanished tradition? What wisdom died when Benin burned? And what would these bronzes reveal if, after all these years, they could finally speak? Yet even now, hidden beneath museums and politics, one truth resonates: the Benin bronzes are more than art. They are records cast in metal, a silent archive of a civilization that refused to vanish. Each carving, each symbolic motif, each royal portrait is a coded message from a lost era of African genius. The bronzes show us kings crowned with coral regalia, warriors armed with ceremonial swords, queens adorned with ivory, and priests invoking ancestral spirits. They reveal a world built on hierarchy, ritual, and cosmic order, an empire where kings were believed to stand between the living and the divine. The images etched into metal were not decoration. They were history, law, and memory forged in brass. They also reveal contact with the outside world. European figures, especially Portuguese traders, appear frequently in the plaques, clear evidence that Benin was never isolated as once portrayed. It was a diplomatic and military power, commanding respect across West Africa and beyond. These bronzes preserve that legacy, defying every colonial lie that once tried to erase it. But the questions that surround them endure, untouched by time. Why do so many symbols resemble those found in other ancient civilizations far beyond Africa? Did Benin inherit knowledge from older cultures, or did it give knowledge to others now forgotten? With each fragment recovered, with each artifact returned home, with each rediscovered tradition, a lost chapter of human history begins to reassemble itself. Benin's story is not just African history. It is world history. The bronzes prove that civilization did not flow in one direction. Greatness did not belong only to Europe, nor intellect only to the West. Empires rose and fell across the globe, and the Kingdom of Benin was one of them, brilliant, sovereign, and creative beyond measure. But until the last bronze is returned, until the last secret is uncovered, until stolen voices are restored to their homeland, the true origin of the Benin bronzes will remain one of the most haunting historical mysteries ever cast in metal. Operation Legacy, the Empire Erased. From the silent void left by vanished relics and forgotten legends, we now move not into a mystery of jewels or curses, but one forged in paper, ink, and deliberate destruction. This is not a tale about what history preserved, but about what was systematically wiped away. Imagine a lonely British colonial office in the final days of empire. The tropical air presses through half-open shutters. A weary official, tie loosened, stands before a roaring furnace.
Feeding stack after stack of government records into the flames.
Outside, the Union Jack flutters for the last time before being lowered. Independence is coming, to Kenya, maybe Malaya, perhaps Aden. But inside these walls, the past is being carefully, methodically, erased. This covert mission had a name: Operation Legacy. From the 1950s until the early 1970s, as Britain prepared to dismantle its vast colonial empire, a secret plan was executed. Its purpose was chillingly precise: to sanitize the historical record. Anything that could expose crimes, implicate colonial officials in wrongdoing, or damage the prestige of the crown had to disappear. The name was poetic, but sinister. Legacy. Yet whose legacy was being preserved? And whose was being buried? Operation Legacy was a strategic campaign of concealment run initially by the Colonial Office, later absorbed by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Colonial administrations across more than 30 territories were given classified instructions: identify documents considered dangerous, and either ship them back to Britain or destroy them beyond recovery. The files targeted covered mass detention operations, torture and forced confessions, surveillance and informant networks, racist administrative policies, psychological warfare and propaganda tactics, covert counterinsurgency methods. The instructions were ruthlessly detailed. In Kenya, where Britain fought a brutal war against the Mau Mau resistance, torture reports and camp logs were burned. In Malaya, files charting mass interrogation programs disappeared. In Uganda, Zanzibar, and British Guiana, intelligence records, police dossiers, and blackmail operations were systematically removed from existence. Documents were marked with a W for watch, meaning they required review. Anything labeled too sensitive had a simple fate: burn it, or dump it at sea. The official cover story? No such files ever existed. And for decades, most of the world believed it. Operation Legacy remained invisible, unmentioned even in official histories of decolonization. That changed only in 2011, during a lawsuit filed by Kenyan survivors of colonial torture. Their demands for truth forced the British government to admit the existence of hidden archives and a massive cover-up. But even then, what emerged was only a fragment of what once existed. From surviving records, we know that destroyed files included evidence of forced labor and concentration like detention camps, testimonies of political prisoners subjected to torture, strategies to break resistance leaders through psychological methods, records of blackmail schemes against African and Asian political figures, proof that British authorities knew about, and sometimes engineered, ethnic violence. Some files even listed individuals to be eliminated, not insurgents, but loyal collaborators and colonial officers whose actions needed to be hidden. This was not paperwork management. It was historical cleansing. Yet, not everything vanished. Roughly 8,800 files, known as the Migrated Archives, were secretly transported to the UK and locked away at Hanslow Park, a guarded government facility. For years, their existence was denied. Only after intense legal pressure did the Foreign Office begin releasing them, piece by piece. Even so, historians immediately noticed strange inconsistencies. Missing files and number sequences, indexes referring to documents that had vanished, descriptions hinting at shocking material, but no documents attached. So where did they go? Were they destroyed late in the purge? Or were they transferred into intelligence archives, now buried under permanent national security secrecy? Some believe Operation Legacy reached further than admitted, beyond the colonies, into Britain itself. Not only covering up local abuses, but concealing high-level policy crimes ordered from London. Others suspect that records exposing Cold War deals, CIA or MI6 partnerships, and foreign interference in post-independence governments were hidden through parallel classified operations never acknowledged. And then there's the most haunting layer, the deep-sea disposal orders. Some colonial offices were instructed to dump documents into the ocean, in trenches so deep they would never resurface. What knowledge was so dangerous it could not even be burned? One chilling case stands out: British Guiana, a colony torn apart by Cold War manipulation and political sabotage. Many intelligence files from there are known to have existed, yet none remain. Were they destroyed, or locked within some secret archive that may never see daylight? Operation Legacy forces us to face a disturbing truth. History isn't only written by the victors, It is erased by them. So what do we truly know about the British Empire? How much of what we read is a sanitized script? How much has been altered, redacted, or buried forever? These actions were not described as crimes. They were labeled necessary measures. But if there was nothing to hide, why hide it so completely? Why deny, lie, and conceal for over half a century? This was more than the destruction of paper. It was the destruction of truth. It was the strategic burning of memory. Some fires leave ashes. Others leave nothing but questions. Behind locked doors, in secret vaults, somewhere in the quiet chambers of power. What else was burned? And worse, what still remains hidden?